Hi, Michael. This is Shabanu. I'm from the Kerrisdale Community Center. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
That's great. So today we were going to talk about the Plaque Project and how it started. And I hear you've written a number of books. And could you tell me something more about Kerrisdale as a part of your history?
Well, I grew up in Kerrisdale and in the 1950s and the 1960s, and so it was during the period that the Kerrisdale Community Center was brand new. It opened when I was just a very tiny child, and but that was the place that you went to for the library, and you went to for swimming lessons, and it was one of the community centers in the city at that time. 1950s, the city was just getting around for that kind of idea of how they would create a community center in that way and combine all of these things in public health and a gymnasium and classrooms for people to do that sort of thing. And so the Kerrisdale Community Center was one of the really early ones. And it was built on the site of the old municipal hall for the municipality of Point Grey. Kerrisdale didn't used to be a part of Vancouver until 1929, but there was a period before then of about 20 years when Point Grey was its own separate municipality, the way that Burnaby or Surrey or Richmond are today. And so the town hall, the municipal hall, was right on that site of the community center. Now, around also in the late 1940s and the early 1950s, the city also built the Kerrisdale Arena at that time, and it over the years has been obviously for skating and that, but a lot of concerts, a lot of quite fascinating bits of history, and who would think it would happen in Kerrisdale, but that's just the way it worked out. The first rock and roll concert in Vancouver of Bill Haley and the Comets took place in the Kerrisdale Arena in 1956. A little too early for me. I was a bit too young. But later on, there were fabulous touring bands who came there, and again, it was a venue that was available and was cheap to rent. And so, even though Kerrisdale was a very conservative middle class sort of an area, it had all these fantastic concerts going right through the 1980s, and then along the way, of course, a million kids learned to skate, and it's always been a center for all kinds of things, including my daughter's elementary school concert of flutophones and banjos, which, no, they're not banjos, ukuleles, so I can remember. So a real community kind of a feeling to them.
Since you've told me so much about the past, how do you think that the Kerrisdale Community Center has changed over the years to what it is now?
Well, I think its programs have reflected the changing needs in the community. So there are more, a lot more seniors programs than there were in the 1950s. In the 1950s, there weren't that many seniors. So that kind of element, and as the apartment area grew up in Kerrisdale in the 1950s and the 1960s, there was more of a need for, I think, recreation programs than there were.
I joined Kerrisdale, I looked at their programs and languages they offered, as well as on the board, and the interns that we joined Kerrisdale, we have a lot of diversity going on for now. I think that's good for the community in general to have so many different types of people engaging in it.
Oh, yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I mean, it's a much more interesting community than it was 40, 50 years ago.
Would you tell me how you got involved with the Plaque Project?
Many years ago, at the founding of the Vancouver Heritage Foundation, I was on the original board. I was one of the directors of the organization, and have kept in touch over the years. And after the sites were chosen by the group, and based on public input and a lot of other nominations, and I was one of the people who wrote a lot of the plaque copy, who did the research to, get these ideas down onto the 100 or so words that you can get onto a plaque, and then finding the other information to go onto the website that'll be part of that. I know, for example, Victoria, which prides itself on its history. A friend of mine who is a counselor there is absolutely envious of us being able to get this off the ground and saying, are you actually going to be able to do this? Because think of how complex. Just a comment about another one about that. People say, oh, Vancouver is so young, it doesn't have any history. Well, first off, things don't get old unless you look after them when they're new. So in order for any city to have history, it has to be a steward of it. And secondly, if you look at cities, North America, Chicago burnt down in the 1870s. Vancouver was founded in the 1880s. No one would look at Chicago and say it doesn't have any history. So why should we be in it?
Well, thank you so much for having a chat with us today. It was lovely talking to you.
Nice talking to you too.
Thank you.